Hello everybody, and this is your introductory screencast to ASPE. Welcome to the course, and the idea of this is you need to make extensive notes on what the subject I'm going to discuss now, which is anatomy and physiology, and essentially we're just going to be talking about bones and the skeleton, and then you're going to use this information in your lesson in about 10 minutes time. So you need to make good notes as we go along. You can pause it at any time and re-record and go over anything you need to. Okay, so as I just mentioned, we're going to be discussing the skeleton, and first of all I'm going to show you a picture of the skeleton on the left hand side of this screen. Pause it, and can you write down and make a note of all the joints that are on that picture, because you will need to know them. Some of them you may be aware of already from GCSE PE, or for those who have done some sort of science to a good standard. Others you may not know any of them, but you'll need to label the skeleton if possible. So here it is, and as you can see there are two different shades of colour on the picture as well, and what they are two different types of parts of the skeleton. One is called the axial skeleton, which basically means the core skeleton running down the centre of your body, and the other section is called the appendicular skeleton, which is the purple areas, and they are on the edges or the extreme outside of your body, and that's the best way to remember it. In our exams, sometimes we do get a reference to the axial and appendicular skeleton, but generally it's just a general knowledge thing that you will need to know. So I'm just going to scan up and down this side of the screen to show you the skeleton in a little bit more detail so you can make notes. And again, like I say, just pause it and make a list of those bones that are on that screen. In accordance with this, your skeleton has 5 main functions. Number 1 is to support your body. Number 2 is for protection of your vital organs. Number 3 is to allow you to move. Number 4 is to produce red blood cells. So in the centre of your bones, there is a system in place that will help you produce more red blood cells for your body. And number 5, your bones also help to provide a mineral store for your body. Okay, second thing I want to discuss is this idea of joints. And within our body we have 3 different types of joints. First kind is what we call fibrous joints, and you might have heard of them as fixed joints. It means the same thing. They're very stable, they don't have any or extremely very little movement, often found in the axial skeleton. So a good example of a fibrous joint would be the cranium. So there are joints between your skull that keep your skull together. That would be a fixed joint or a fibrous joint. The second type of joint is what we call cartilaginous, which means it's a little bit like the fibrous or fixed joint, but it has a little bit more movement. Not a massive amount of movement, but a little bit more movement. These ones you may have known from GCSE as slightly movable joints, but they're actually called cartilaginous joints, and again they're generally found in the axial skeleton, mainly in the vertebral column. And the last type of joints which applies to us the most, especially in sporting situations, are synovial joints. Synovial joints are not very stable, but they have lots of movement. So these are what we call movable joints, and the majority of these joints are found in the appendicular skeleton, so the external areas such as your elbow or your wrist or your ankle. Okay, so what we're going to do is go through each type of joint separately. Again, I want you to make a note of what the joint is and whereabouts it's located in the body using the pictures. So the first type is a gliding joint, so that's what it looks like in terms of what it does. And the example I've given here is in the spinal column, so the edges of each individual vertebrae actually rub against the other part of the vertebrae in order to move, so they glide across each other. The second joint is the saddle, and again this is an overview of what it does, or what it sort of looks like, and that's found in your thumb. So when you move your thumb, especially at the base of your thumb, it is a saddle joint. Third joint is the hinge, probably the most common known joint. Again, that's what it does, looks like a door hinge, and generally found in these three areas: the elbow, the knee, or the ankle. Fourth joint is what we call pivot joint. Again, this is something that rotates around an axis, and just like your head or the top of the spine, so what we call the neck, that will be, and a good example of a pivot joint, there is also a pivot joint in your forearm where your radius and ulnar are, and where they twist over. So when you twist your wrist, that's what your radius and ulnar do. There is a pivot joint there. Fifth one is a ball and socket joint, again quite a common joint that most people will know, and these are found in your shoulder and your hips. You can clearly see there the similarity between the picture on the left and the picture on the right in terms of the humerus. And finally, there is a condyloid joint, which is quite similar to a ball and socket joint, but doesn't allow quite so much movement. This is actually found in the small bones in your wrist. Okay, as I say, what you'll need to do now is make sure you've got notes on everything that I've spoken about. Go back over the picture, make sure you've got skeleton notes. Make sure you've got notes on all of the joints. When you're happy with your notes, let one of us know, and we will redirect you back to the classroom, or if we're working in here, we'll stay in here and provide the next part of the introductory day.